globe on it, and you see the winding staircase that the mason goes up to go into the most high place of the tabernacle. That winding staircase is DNA. In fact, the keystone itself is DNA. DNA is a crystal. It's a stone. And there's a connection in the seed of men between the God world and the human world, and that's what Jor-El represents. That's what they were teaching you in this movie. And someone pointed this out to me, and I'm just going, I'd never figured that. He said, Pastor Mike, you remember, not Superman, Spider-Man? Remember Spider-Man, and he's in love with MJ, Mary Jane? And there's that famous scene where you get the wet kiss. You remember that one? Notice that Spider-Man is pointing down, and Mary Jane is pointing up. That's this. It's the square and the compass. He is the God who is hooking lips with the human. It's there. Let's go back and look at the history of the Superman movies. I just happen to have seen all of them. Okay, some of them, like the last two Superman movies that Christopher Reeve did, they were junk. Ugh. Who came up with this stuff? The first two were good. Second two, Superman Returns was okay. Man of Steel, anyway. Let's go all the way back to the Salkinds movie. Alexander Salkind, Ilya Salkind, in the 1970s version of Superman. This was a blockbuster. I mean, people loved this movie. They fell in love with it. Jor-El actually is the one who proclaims in this movie he will be a god to them, because Kal-El's mother's worried that he'll be odd, he'll be an outcast. He says he'll be a god to them. So they're setting you up in your mind that he's going to be a god. And then in Superman 2, Kal-El falls to mortality and he mates with Lois Lane. So we have the gods mating with the human women. 5 years later, Kal-El goes to Krypton. He's away for 5 years. He comes back. He finds out that Lois Lane's his baby mama. He finds out he's got a baby from her, and he's kind of wondering about it, and Lex Luthor figures it out. Who's this boy's daddy? Because this little 5-year-old boy has got superpowers. Why is he 5 years old? Did you know that in the Omen movies, the first one that came out, little Thorn boy, Damien Thorn, 5 people get killed in this movie too. What does that have to do with anything? Revelation chapter 9, we have the opening of the bottomless pit, and the king of the bottomless pit, Abaddon, Apollyon, and all these devils come out of there for 5 months. Think of what Lucifer said in Isaiah 14, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. That 5 is highly significant. So then in the remake, we're going to redo the whole Superman thing, the Man of Steel. Jor-El, before he sends Kal-El to the earth, he says, I have to get the codex. I have to get the codex. Most people, they don't know what that is. The word codex means a book. That's what a codex is. It's a scroll or a book, primarily a scroll. Those of you who study the Bible, you know anything about textual manuscripts, they have names. This is Codex Alexandrinus, Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Vaticanus, Codex B, Codex Aleph. They have all and they call them codexes because they are scripts rolled up in like scrolls. So Jor-El has got to steal the codex, which you find out is a skull. Hang on. You find out it's a skull, and you find out that the codex has in it all of the seed of everybody who would be born and has been born on Krypton. So we have the seed of the gods now inside of Kal-El. DNA. See, codex means a book. In Psalm 139:16, thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect, and in thy book all my members were written, which in continuance were fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. He's referring to, even though 1,000 years before Christ, 3,000 years before now, God is showing David what made him in his mother's womb. It wasn't just jelly. It was a book that God wrote that had all of his members written out even before they were fashioned in his body. David was describing DNA, and he called it a book. And so in Superman, the remake, The Man of Steel, this codex now, this Krypton secret, is in the form of a skull. Remember when we started out this series, the Comic Con, I told you that we had this imagery of this harlot woman, or Mary Magdalene, and she's got a book and she's got a skull. Here it is right here. The skull and the book go together. This is the DNA of the skull, the God who is in us. Take a look at this image here. The skull and the crossbones. The crossbones are the chromosomes. The skull is in there. We have the dying God already in us, and he is waiting his resurrection. In Matthew chapter 27, verse 33, and when they were coming to a place called Golgotha, that is to say, a place of the skull. What was that? What is this referring to? This is referring to Jesus, who dies on the cross, but where is the cross inserted into? The skull. The skull and cross bones was evident at Calvary. This was the enemies that Jesus was showing his defeat over in his death. Sort of like what the Bible said about Samson. The Bible says that Samson killed more of his enemies in his death than he ever did in his life. So that's what Jesus was doing. He was showing the death of the Antichrist on his death on the cross. The cross being jammed into the skull. Sort of like Jael, Heber's wife, back in the book of Judges, whose Sisera comes in, and he's a representation of the one who is against God's people. So he's a picture of the Antichrist. And he comes in and he falls asleep in Jael's tent. And Jael takes a big tent peg and drives it through his skull and kills him. Think of Jesus and the cross being fastened as a nail in a sure place in the place of the skull. Isn't that cool? But they're telling you in Superman the movie, the Man of Steel, that the hope for humanity is the DNA that's in the skull. That's what they're telling you. We go back to this image of Superman falling out of the spaceship like this. He is the God. Remember, he is the God who offers himself as a sacrifice and then is resurrected so he can save mankind. You remember this scene from Spider-Man? Look what he's doing. The same thing. You see all the people carrying him? And by the way, watch this now. His mask is off. In Spider-Man, you remember that? And all these people who are holding him when he's making a cross, they know his real identity. They know his secret. So what do? When he finally comes back to life, what do? They give him his mask. Here. We won't tell anybody. They're the Illuminati. They're the ones who know the secret and aren't. They're the ones who know who this is. They're not telling anybody. I'm not telling you to go out and watch movies so you can understand this stuff. I'm telling you it's already there, and millions of people all over the world are watching it, and they're slowly but surely being subtly indoctrinated into this new mystery cult that's going to happen right in front of people's eyes, and they're going to go, I know what that is. Wait and see. Iron Man. Interesting. Because in Daniel 2, the kingdom that mingles themselves with the seed of men is the Iron Kingdom. They're going to make people into Iron Men. Iron Man 3. He is killed, supposedly, buried, and he is resurrected, but they have to keep it a secret for a while, and then he's revealed. And then, if you remember in Iron Man 3, if you saw the movie, if you remember in Iron Man 3, they found a cure to regenerate mankind, to make him live forever. That's Iron Man 3. Neo. Hello, Neo, I am the architect. Remember that? From the Matrix. Neo is told by the Black Isis, the Black Madonna, who is the oracle in this. See, the Wachowski brothers, they went and got all of this stuff from all the mystery religions, and that's who the oracle represents. If you've never seen the movie, just ignore me for a few minutes. But if you have, you know what I'm talking about. She is a black woman. She is the Black Isis, the Black Madonna. She is Isis. She is the oracle. She is the mother of the Matrix. The architect, which is a Freemason term for God, is the father of the architect. You see the idea here, the father and the mother, and they have worked together to create Neo, who is the one. And so when Neo first presents himself to the Black Madonna, to the oracle, he asked her, "Am I the one?" She said, "No, at least not this life. I just love candy." So you think, wow, I thought he was the one. He's not the one. So at the end of the first Matrix movie, Neo's facing off with the evil devil, Agent Smith, and they gut him down. And he's laying there dead. You're going to like this. You remember Isis holding the Ankh in her hand? And she uses it to resurrect Osiris? Neo's girlfriend, Trinity, she's in the real world. Neo's in the Matrix. If you don't understand it, just ignore me for a few minutes. When Neo's shot down by Mr. Smith, Agent Smith, Trinity is the one who brings him back to life with her kiss. So now Neo is resurrected. Now he's the one. And instead of Neo dodging all these bullets, and you see him fighting Agent Smith, he's just like going. And it's nothing to him. And then they're firing all the bullets and he just goes, and they all stop in midair and drop to the ground. See, now he's more powerful than he ever was in his first life. It's a constant theme in comic books, in these movies, and they're teaching you the doctrine of the Antichrist. Now, we're going to kind of go back a little bit to how all of these comic book ideas, these ideas for all these gods and these superheroes and everything like that. Let's go back and do a little history, and we're going to work our way into the 20th and 21st century. You have this concept called the rise of the Superman. There was an occult revival in the mid to late 1800s. You understand that since the coming out of the King James and the Protestant Reformation, you had Christianity spreading like wildfire all over the earth. Missionary societies preaching Jesus everywhere, preaching the cross, preaching salvation. And after a while, people got tired of organized religion, like the Church of England, the Church of Rome, things like that. They got tired of the organized religion. So in places in Europe and France, England, places like that, they began to look in other places. And what you had was this really huge outpouring of this occult knowledge and so on being taught everywhere. Blavatsky and Crowley, we're going to talk about some of these guys. They were disillusioned with the whole church establishment thing, so they went searching after other ideas and other ways of finding some sort of religious fulfillment. Now I'm going to show you this from the scriptures because God ordained this and God knew that this was going to happen. So he told about it and he warned about it. Revelation 13:11, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon." There's software called dragon speaking. Anyway. "And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live." So we find out that the false prophet, he speaks like a dragon. He speaks in these whispers, in this mystery talk, and he does great wonders.